Well, hello and welcome to Fun Fantasy FPL. My name is Harry,
And I'm Stephen Berry.
and on this week's pod, I hope you've enjoyed last week's what we had with Josh Ball. Hopefully, we'll have him back later on, but we're going to discuss a couple of the games, our biggest takeaways, and we're also going to, look at sort of the rogue transfers we're going through into the first double game week of the season. Stephen, are you excited?
Woo! Let's have a double San Miguel to celebrate the double game week. Woo!
Those who can't see us because you're listening, because we're in your ear holes rather than in your eye holes, we are drinking San Miguel because it was the only beer I could find in the house. Thank you to whichever person donated it to my flat on the last house party we had. So first double game week of the season. But before we talk about our future plans, Stephen, how did you do this week? Are you up into the top 4 million? 3 million even? Where are we
Ah,
going?
I'm just shy of the 4 million. I'm 4.1 million. However, this is the point where I'm going to semi-announce something, which is I've basically given up with overall ranking. I think the title there is a bit out of my grasp. However, I am 1,494th in the second chance league. I think I'm about 30
Wow.
or something. Well,
Exceptional, exceptional.
I think I'm about 30 or something off winning that, I think. So that's definitely my goal to not none of this top 10 or top, I want to win the second chance league.
Yeah.
Every player who's in it from originally is still in it as well, so I'm doing pretty well. And quite frankly, I'm just going to Leicester it. I'm going to be relegated the season before, halfway through the season, play like a Champions League team. If you did the league table after a certain point, Leicester would have won it then as well. That's what I'm going to do. Focus on that, win, and then next season come and take the whole crown. That's my plan.
Well, to quote one of my favorite movies of all time, it's a bold strategy. Can't wonder if it's going to work out for him. But
Mm.
we're still going to talk about the overall ranks because I'm doing quite well. So this
Yes.
week I am on. I got a nice 68, I believe. Finishing up at 250. Yeah, what was it? So I finished on 68 points. Finished 270 in the world. I'm very, very happy about that after having a momentary dip after playing my wild card. Generally, that's the opposite of what playing a chip does. But as with my relationship with the FPL gods is not good. We're not on speaking terms, and it seems to me that we are. Every time I play a chip, things just go downhill from there.
Yeah.
So yeah, broadly speaking, pretty happy. Brought in a Gakpo this week,
Yep.
which was an exceptional choice. I thought, why not go early? 16 points, and I'm pretty well set for the double game week. I don't own an Everton player. It does pain me that I don't, and I never thought I'd say that. But and it also doesn't. It also pains me that I'd have to probably sell Chris Wood to get
Mm.
my number one boy, which is Injai, who's once again, in the goals, playing well. But yeah, I mean that leads us quite nicely onto a game that you wanted to talk about, which was the Everton Brighton game. So why don't you give your take?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Brighton are wonderfully inconsistent, aren't they? So just this is a weird data point, which I know that everyone else is going to have. I'm in a last man standing, and Brighton. If you those that don't know, you pick a team to win, and then if they win, you go through. If you don't, you're out. Brighton have caused the casualties of 34 players and have returned zero winners. So that means that people who watch football, like football, think Brighton should win this game, and they don't win. And they've done this multiple times throughout the season. What does that mean from an FPL perspective? I honestly, it's quite. I think actually maybe it is time to sort of get rid of them. I mean, I've had Matoma for a while, who I think overall, given his price, has done okay for me. But he's got a couple of hauls here and there, but it's just like twos and ones and stuff like that. Brighton players aren't cheap. They're sort of upper mid-table. A lot of them. They're defenders. Again, they're not the best at keeping clean sheets. Yeah, I think basically the key thing to take away from a Brighton perspective is I just don't think any of their players are really worth their price, and I don't see too many differentials there. Occasionally, one of them will do something pretty good, but it's going to be too and far in between. And then I guess Everton, the question is, and I think I'm back, is Moisey, the greatest manager in Premier League history, basically. If you look at what's happened to West Ham since he left, look what happened to Man U since
Yeah.
he's left. Even Everton as well, that was very different circumstances. But yeah, one of the most underrated managers in the league, basically. Is he going to get them back on? Well, I think he's going to keep the Dyche in defence. So I think Everton defenders definitely do come back into play. But I think they're going to get some decent results as well. Comfortably stay up. But I think from FPL perspective, any of their back four given their price, they're pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of I know I hate the whole things you see online of like good old Barclays Premier League, but it does have a whiff of that, a sort of essence of an
Yeah.
old school Everton team, And
Mm,
look, he has got a big job to do, but it looks like the team is set up quite nicely.
mm,
He's got some talented players there. I always have this feeling about Everton, right? They should do a lot better. Whereas you see some teams that massively overperform the players that they have. Everton just
mm,
consistently underperform.
mm.
You know, almost as bad as Spurs, some would say.
Yes.
Um, but we'll talk about them later. So for the listeners and viewers, you won't hear me rant about Spurs. You will hear Stephen laugh about Spurs
Yes.
this week. But I'm going to talk about one
But
game.
Barry, before you do though, I
Yeah.
feel like I have to sum this up, which is that I am a fan of Everton. I know I
Yeah.
mentioned Everton defenders, but Barry, I've been my transfers before the pod, which is
Oh my goodness me.
very very unlike me. And a lesson that I learned last week is that I captained Gordon rather than Isak. So I was already going rogue going against Salah, which actually was the right decision, just I went overly rogue. So I've learned from that mistake. I'm going to go rogue by captaining an Everton player, but I'm not going to triple captain him. So that's the sort of going rogue, but holding back a bit. And I've done it, Barry. Enjoy. Welcome to the team.
Oh my
Captain for
God.
the double game week.
So
It's
so here's
happened.
here's my thing. Here's my thing right now. I want to laugh at you. But if Njai does really well, I'll look great. My
Yeah.
fantasy football knowledge is brilliant, right? But then if I am correct, which is a worrying prospect in
Mm.
general for anyone that involves in my life, you will do very, very well. And I actually don't think it's a bad shout. I mean, they've got Liverpool at home, Moisey in dugout, they got
Yeah.
Leicester as well. Is it Leicester
Let's
at
go
home as
home.
well?
Let's go
I mean,
home.
two home fixtures, you know, Everton of old. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Is that the only transfer you've made? Or have you
I
got
made
more
another
surprises?
one. Another one's a very defensive one. I sold somebody shit he'd been rotting on my bench for Canate at the back, but that's a very defensive bit transfer.
Sure, sure. Okay, cool.
Mm.
Well, so there's one game I want to talk about just quickly whilst we're there. Bournemouth Forest.
Yeah, wow.
I don't think anyone saw this coming. I
Mm.
mean, I am blown away at
Mm.
how well Bournemouth are playing this season.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, the little known fact, you might know this already, being an Arsenal fan, but him and Arteta, they grew up together. They played football together at the
Yes.
same school.
Yes, yes,
It
yes.
seems to me that football managers that come from Saint Sebastian just play amazing football.
Mm.
And to be honest, he'd be my number one choice if Ange was to go. Now, would he go to
Mm.
Tottenham? Don't think so. But I think there's an array of skill sets that he shows there. So I think I'm not sure how much he is on the assistant manager chip, but I think he'd be a really interesting pick from an assistant manager perspective because he should get wins, they should score goals as they demonstrated against Forest, but also they're very well equipped to beat teams above them. Very well equipped.
Mm.
They haven't got Europe. They're not in the League Cup. The FA Cup, I think they're still in it, or maybe they went out. But so they haven't got this distraction. They've lost basically all their number nines, but still banging in
Yeah.
goals. I mean, if you haven't got one or two Bournemouth players in your team, I mean, I'm not sure what it says about Forest. I'll be honest. I think it's just tiredness. To be honest, I think that they just looked really leggy. They looked
Mm.
really uncomfortable. Players that have been superb all season were making mistakes they wouldn't normally make. Like Murillo, Sells, I thought could do better for a couple of the goals, and
Mm.
generally speaking, towards the end of the game, they sort of gave up a little bit. So my perspective is, if you have Forest players, I would keep them. I'd maybe think about selling defensively. Like I said at the beginning, I am thinking about selling Chris Wood just purely for the double game week. But I wouldn't be against holding
Yeah,
him.
I wouldn't panic with Forest yet. They were one
No,
nil
no,
down
no.
at half time, and then I think the three goals in the last 10 minutes or something like that. Forest are trying to get back into it. So
Yeah,
yeah, look, 5-0. It's obviously a battering, but it also was at the same time. As you said, they knew
yeah,
they knew the game was up, and they sort of threw in the towel, as you said. But yes, I think it's more Bournemouth were very good
yeah.
versus Forest are very bad.
I also do wonder. just looking ahead at the fixtures, right? So the next couple of fixtures that bought the
Bournemouth's fixture run after
no,
Liverpool is absurd.
I was going to talk about
Oh,
Forest actually. So quickly,
oh,
Forest.
okay.
So they got Brighton at home, not an easy fixture. They then got Fulham away, not an easy fixture. They then
Mm.
got
Ooh,
Newcastle away, not a good fixture.
yeah,
Arsenal at home, not a good fixture. Man City at home, not a good
yeah.
fixture. Ipswich away, okay, but that's then you're into March. So they've got 6 weeks of just dross fixtures, and so I wonder whether maybe
Sounds like
because
Woodfriend Jai is coming. It's happening on
I
the
mean,
pod. Barry's first on the
Stephen, I'm
pod
not going
trend,
to do it
so
on the
it's
pod. I'm not
happening.
going to do it on the pod. You won't rattle me that easily, although I am exceptionally rattled all of the time. Um, but I would if put it this way, if you had a Forest player and you could go to a Bournemouth player, I would do that. And in my case, because I already own a Bournemouth player, I'm waiting for this new fix this greater fixture run after Liverpool to come in, I would look at doing an Everton player because they're about the same price. You can definitely save some cash here and there. You can always go back. I mean, Chris Wood, you might say goodbye to him this week, but you might come back a couple of weeks
Mm,
later, especially when they run into
yeah,
Ipswich. So what I'm saying is, Forest, don't panic. I think it's reasonable to sell. Bournemouth, get on it. I mean,
yeah,
they look so good. Talent all over the pitch.
yeah,
Evan Nilsson's got a broken foot from memory, so he's going to be out for a long time. So
yeah,
I think that,
yeah.
you've got some really good, interesting players there. But he does rotate, and I think this is the big thing. So
Is
something,
he?
yeah, no, at 60, 65, the attackers, the wingers get changed, and then the forwards get
I
changed later
wouldn't.
on.
I wouldn't call that rotating. I think if
No, no,
look, you
but
would like them. You like them to play 90 minutes every week,
my point,
obviously.
yeah,
But
my
but
point
still, I
is,
would say if they're starting at 60 minutes, that's not bad.
no, 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 no. So fine, but then if you look at a player like Tavernier before he got injured, right? He was kind of in and out of the team and challenging for Kluivert's spot. Now Kluivert's obviously got that spot nailed now, right? But he when Tavernier comes back, it could be quite easily you could quite easily see that if Kluivert didn't do anything in a game, a bit like Gakpo. If you look at Gakpo, right, at 60, he always gets and he hasn't done anything, he gets subbed. If he's done
Yeah,
something, he stays on for the 90. So you're hoping those 60 minutes are a quality 60 minutes. If they're not, and it happens, you look at Gakpo's stats, it's like points, 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 one blank, and you see in that blank at 60, 67, he gets subbed. So it's just something to be aware of. I think I'm not
yeah.
saying, casting aspersions or anything like that. And clearly the manager knows what he's doing because he's in such a fantastic position. You know, I think that, if I mean I know they've got Liverpool next, but they've got Liverpool at home. Now,
Mm.
Stephen, they've beaten Man City. Okay. They've beaten Arsenal. They've beaten Spurs.
Yeah.
They've
They
um
comfortably beat Arsenal at home. They comfortably beat
it
Man
was a
City at home.
there
Not just
was a
not,
red
not just
card
the
in that
win.
game.
Yes,
Yeah,
it was
but
a it was
obviously
a. We're not going to talk about
we're
last
not going
man
to talk about
last
red
red
cards in
cards.
Arsenal because
It was a
it might
last man
trigger.
red card. It was a last man red card as well. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that. But yeah, no, nevertheless, even
Yeah,
before the red card,
yeah,
Bournemouth were looking pretty good. So they've come to be beating those teams. Liverpool are a class above Arsenal, Man City this season. They just are. Maybe a class above is a bit harsh, but nevertheless, I think. I mean, look, let's just call it out. I'm not sure for captaining Salah. I think that's a risk. I think. Look. As I said, Bournemouth have got the best. I think Bournemouth have got the best defense at the home in the league. I mean,
yeah,
second or something
yeah.
like that
Best
after Liverpool.
they was
Mm.
it they only conceded 7 goals at home this season?
Wow. Yeah.
7 goals. That is astonishing. Someone told me that I
Yeah.
was like, I cannot believe that. But I can
Yeah.
definitely see them being Liverpool.
And also he's not an idiot. He's not going to go like, oh, we've just beaten 5-0. Let's go out and smash Liverpool. He'll be like, no, no, no. We
No,
we'll
no, no,
we'll
no,
we'll
no.
we'll, we'll go to the 4-4-2 that we play. It's the big teams defend and
Yeah,
like be very very difficult to beat and good on the counter.
yeah,
Um, And then the Merseyside derby, I know it's a terrible football cliche, but Derby, the form book goes out the window. Moyes' first derby back at Goodison. The 1-0 Everton is just calling out, isn't it? So
yeah.
I
I
I
mean, I
I know
mean,
we don't know what other double fixtures are going to be, but I just don't like Liverpool's double game week, to be honest with you. I
yeah,
really don't. I would rather, because I'm sure Liverpool will have. I mean, okay, Ipswich at home would have been a better choice, right? I know he only got one goal, but that makes for me more sense than the. I think people are just getting lured into 180 minutes too easily. I could be
yeah.
wrong, but I personally wouldn't even. I wouldn't consider captaining him or a Liverpool
Okay.
player this week.
So before we talk about the future things going forward, because we kind of dribbled onto that, do you want to talk about the Tottenham game? Because you did want to highlights
Yeah.
and things.
First of all, ah,
Oh,
I mean,
come on,
this
Stephen.
is.
I'm in pain, and you're my friend. Come on, man.
I
Like,
mean, so Leicester couldn't win. They couldn't score. They couldn't defend. They still didn't do. They still conceded a goal. But like, this is Dr. Tottenham's powers are really, really
well, the
strong.
point of Doctor Tottenham is we don't have a fucking doctor. Let's be real about it. We
Yeah,
advertised the place. We advertised a position to someone to be the first team medical person because clearly all our players are made of paper. All
yeah.
the training record regime is terrible. I mean, look, I'm going to say this. I'm sorry. I should have. You've triggered me now. I don't want Ange to go. I don't think it's his fault. I think it's nuts that we're recording this on the 28th of January. We have 11 first team fit players and Levy hasn't brought his checkbook out. I mean, what are you doing? Like, Solanke's out for 6 weeks and we're going to rely on Will Lang.
You bought a goalkeeper to be fair.
Oh, a goalkeeper. Brilliant. I know Fraser Forster's terrible, but I mean, I'd rather. But we don't have a striker. We do not have. We have Will Lancashire. I like Will Lancashire. I think he played really well at Galatasaray, right? But he's not going to be able to play 90 minutes against the big boys, against Van Dijk, against any of these players when we go up to Liverpool, right? We need to sign someone. We need to sign anyone. Like, go out on loan. Go get someone on loan. Go find a player who's disgruntled, not playing, and get him on loan. I don't know why we haven't just gone and done that. Like there are
I
loads of players that are not
because
playing in the Premier League.
look, because honestly, what would be the point? Because as you said, it's not. You have 11 players. This is an unprecedented injury crisis.
Yeah.
So are you going to sign what 10 players and like have a new
No,
team? No, like
I would sign one in each
there's two,
position.
there's
I'd sign one
just
in each position. One centre
good
back.
players.
Yes, one centre back. Angel Gomes of Lyon, one of the French teams. Get him in on loan with an option to buy. One centre
Wait,
back.
hold on,
Of,
no. So first of all, Lille are just going to let one of their best defenders go to you on loan with an option to buy, are
well,
they?
he's midfielder. He's a midfielder,
Okay.
but his contract is up in the summer, I believe. So that means
Right.
that there is something to be done there. Get a striker from like the Spanish league, like a big lump that we can put up top, and someone can whip balls into, or Madison can hit when he's fit in there,
Very
and then
much
just
the Ange way of playing football. Yep, got it. Yep.
mate, come
Part of the
on, just
plan.
get
It's just
anyone,
look,
anyone.
look. Whether you like, look, fundamentally,
Ferguson,
th- th-
Ferguson of Brighton is not playing,
yeah, yeah,
and
that
he's
would be
going out
yeah,
on loan
but
apparently to West Ham. Off to West Ham, we would have
wow,
him. We would have him. Get him on
yeah, that is
board.
that is bad to be fair. But if he goes to West Ham over you guys, that is poor. But what I will say is this: like you're going to get some of your players back soon. You're not going to get relegated, as much as I'd like to say that you would. You're not going to get relegated. You're not going to qualify for Europe. So
I'm not confident of that.
it doesn't actually really matter what happens in the league, really. You're going to wait for your players to come back, have a bit of a run, and then who knows? If you all you need to do is just scrape something against Liverpool, and maybe look, you beat them at home, so and relatively comfortably. Liverpool have got a lot of fixtures coming up as well. Is their heart going to be in that game? Who
The
knows?
interesting
But
thing, the interesting thing,
I think making three panic transfers. Bear in mind the window closes in what 3 days. Three panic
but he's
transfers
known
aren't
this
going
for
to
20.
change anything.
We have known this injury crisis has existed since
Sure.
mid-December. They should have had a plan to roll out and go and buy all these players. Now, interestingly enough, just a bit of FPL. I think Richarlison could be an option if Spurs
Oh,
if Spurs' fixtures come good. I think he could be an option.
was that you're going to be your rogue shot for later?
No, it's not.
Wow.
No,
Oh,
I'm
roguer
not.
than that.
Yeah, well, it's not
Wow.
Roga, but it's bit. Yeah.
Right,
Anyway,
okay. But yes, I think thank you, Barry, for letting me talk about Spurs. But yes, let me just quickly quickly summarize that game. First of all, Leicester, dude, don't get their players. I think I don't think anyone is considering that, but if you are, really, really don't. Spurs, I maintain what I said that Big Ange at some point this season will be the AM chip to play. At some point they'll have close to the
I
first
agree
11
with that. I
back.
agree with that.
Because back to your Bournemouth thing about getting Areola, like there's actually no point because they're seventh, I think. So basically he'd have to play Liverpool or Arsenal and like to get the 10-point bonus, which is quite hard.
Mm.
So yeah, no, I think once Spurs will get their first team back some point this season. They'll playing a bit too. I mean, I haven't done this forensically, but either way,
Yeah,
there's also another reason. I
he's
think
cheap
also
as
just
well,
generally
isn't he? 0.8.
I think he's 1.1. I think it's the same as Iriola, actually. I'm
But
not
but
sure.
but
But he's
but
not, but either way, I don't actually think, I mean, at least this season, because no one's still, people still don't really have Haaland. I don't think cost is too much this season. I mean, I've got Foden, I've got Isaac, I've got Watkins, I've still got 1.4 in the bank. So I don't think,
yeah.
because of Haaland's price sort of skewing everything, if you don't have him, you should be able to afford any AM you want, I would have thought, by
Well,
and large.
our assistant manager still has him, and he is
Uh,
starting to pay dividends, I have to say.
yeah.
She was celebrating like a mentalist at the weekend
Hmm.
when he scored. But I tell you what, who is also an interesting price on the managers, David Moyes,
Yeah.
0.5. Because when they did the pricing, they didn't have a manager.
Yeah. If you are
Amarin
to
as
if
well. Amarin as
if
well.
you're if you're absolutely determined this week to use the chip, which I'm not, by the way, but if you're one of those people
Yeah.
who like it's a double, there aren't many doubles. You've got to use the chips. I get that. I don't personally agree, but I understand. I would actually probably say AM for Moyes actually, because I think they play Liverpool obviously, and then who's there? I think the fixture run's pretty good. Palace, I think they are five below Palace, maybe. No, Palace are terrible, aren't they? Nah, they got Man U, they five below them. No. Actually,
Yeah,
no.
I've,
I
I've
don't.
just I've just looked at their
Don't
run-ins.
don't play it. Don't play a chip this week. Basically, my advice. Don't do it.
No, their run-ins all right. 35 to 37. Ipswich, Fulham, Southampton. Fulham will have
Okay,
their flip-flops on. David Moyes will be in there like a
but will they be 5 points clear by then? I don't know. Five
maybe, but
places clear.
they also have a terrible run before that. They have Liverpool away, Arsenal at home, Forest away, Man City at home, Chelsea away. That fixture run in April is a dog.
Hmm.
That is awful. But anyway, so
But
did you notice any Leicester players that you want to buy? You said don't buy Leicester players. Not even a Jamie Vardy. Not even
I
a
mean, Jamie
interesting
Vardy
you.
Jamie Vardy's still what he is. What he is. If you need a cheap striker,
Yeah.
go for him. But again, Njai's the same price as him, and he's got less than Liverpool this week. I mean, if you really, I mean, if you had Haaland, you would need both him and Njai, I would say. But
Mm.
no, Amavidi, I think, the second I backed him, he's fallen off a cliff.
Your testicles
So
did not come through for you there.
no, they didn't. So, and
No.
again, Spurs, just wait. At some point, their first 11 will come back, and then some of their assets become interesting again. In particular, Ange as an AM chip.
So you have more faith in Spurs than I do. But we'll move on
Hmm.
before I get to send any more. So the last game that we want to talk about, and I was going to mention, was the Man City Chelsea game.
Hmm.
Look, I mean, look, there's been many false dawns. They had an absolute capitulation against PSG. Their new centre back they signed, he completely,
Yeah, it was
lost it.
terrible.
It was a bad performance. But apparently he's 20 years old, doesn't speak any English, and Pep threw him in there like a bloody stone. I thought that was a bit harsh, to be honest. But
Because he had to. There's no other option.
well, he
Everyone else
said
is
John
injured.
Stones, but he said he didn't want to play him because he was worried about the game of the week or something like that. But anyway, the fact is they got the win. I found it quite interesting that Cole Palmer was the most sold player, I think, that week or something. It was a silly amount of people selling, and I think he got a price drop because of it. And Haaland scored as well, and got an assist, the most bogus assist in the world, but they all count.
Mm.
He just held the ball up, passed it to Foden near the halfway line, and Foden went and did what he does. Um, so yeah, look, I think it was an interesting game from the fact that maybe some Man City players are looking more interesting. And I'm going to name one who didn't get anything in the game week, which is so me, right? I'm going to name a player that I like the look of, an eye test player, and that was their new signing. I'm gonna absolutely butcher his name. You ready for this? Mamouche. I think I did all
I'm
right
actually not
there.
sure I'm not sure how you pronounce it. So if that's what you say,
Mamouche.
I'll back you.
So he's 7 million, right? And I think the first couple of minutes, he had a shot outside the box, and I thought, man, this guy's got. He also didn't lay it off the phone at one point to have a shot. Again, selfish players, we love that. Look, Man City, we've covered their problems relentlessly, but I think he's a good signing. They have a bit of a tough run, but I think after the Liverpool game, they then got us away, Forest away, Brighton at home, Leicester at home, Man United away, Palace away. They go into a really nice run until probably the end of the season. In fact, after the Liverpool game, I would say there is a case to say they've got probably the best run in. They've got a
Yeah,
really
probably.
nice run in. So I'd be looking at Mamouche, 7 million. I think he's a bit of a bargain, to be honest, particularly if he's playing in that position week in, week out. Um, yeah, I mean, did you see any of the game, any of his performance?
I did, and I'll be frank. I'm still not convinced by Man City. Let's just be really, really candid here. Sanchez gave them that game. That like the Foden goal, their Chelsea line pressed so high up because they were chasing. Haaland just good old-fashioned number nine play, played it off nicely. I think that's actually a bit harsh thing. Bit of a dodgy assist. I think he did really well there, did good old-fashioned play. But Sanchez for the second goal is just incredible. Third goal was obviously very suspect. I now have Sanchez and Fabianski from FPL in goal, and I think neither of them might start soon. Chelsea had good chances. They were a bit unlucky not to go. I think it was the two up. I think if memory serves right. But yeah, Palmer had a bit of a weak shot, didn't he, 1-on-1? So I think if they had somebody with a brain cell in goal, they wouldn't have won that game. Potentially, it would have been a draw. So
Okay.
I'm still yet to be convinced. All I know is that Sanchez is just not very good, and that's still the case.
Well, it's a big test on Sunday. You boys away. So yeah, look, that'll be the test for me. I mean, look, these next couple of fixtures, I think are a real, proper tough test for City. If they can get through it relatively unscathed, if they get even a draw at your place, and they've got Newcastle at home and Liverpool at home, and they get something out of those games, I would say that City have got it in them. I'm not saying they're back before anyone loses their mind. They've got it in them to go on a run. We've all seen it, right? And they're not going to win the Premier League, right? Let's be real about this. They're not going to win the Premier League. But what are they? They're fourth, 41 points, right? They've got this next four games really tough, three games, and then they've got what 20? No, I can't do maths. 15 games in which they could win every single one of those. But I did see a really interesting stat, right? So um, if we say that 90 points is the aim of a team to win the Premier League, if we say 90, you need to get 90 points to win the Premier League. Liverpool can drop 15 points from now until the end of the season and still reach that tally. Arsenal can only drop six.
Yeah. So that means five losses, and Liverpool have only lost once this season, and that was Nottingham Forest at home back all those weeks ago. Haven't lost a game in the Premier League
Forest
since
got
then.
4 points off them, which is the most out of any team
Yeah.
this
Have
season.
actually Liverpool lost a game? They lost a game in Europe since then. They're
No,
out.
they were
They
unbeaten.
Spurs beat them in the cup. They're
Yeah,
still in
they
the
were
FA
unbeaten.
Cup.
Unbeaten in Europe. Unbeaten in Europe. Yeah. So
Yeah, so
so yeah. So it's going back to it. I think what it says about Man City is watch them carefully. And if they start to put a series of a run of performance together, I think it's really, really important to have a look at some of those players. Mamouche will be top, Foden probably second, and if the robot starts scoring again, well, I mean, and
hmm
short of all the dead teams taking us over, we're going to get him in. So,
yeah.
yeah, that would be my coverage on those games. Stephen, do you want to reveal? I mean, your rogue shout has to be the fact you're triple captain. We're not captain, triple captain. You're captaining in Jai.
No, just capturing him. But I'll do say first. I agree with you in terms of must-haves. Bournemouth. So I've actually had Clive for ages. I had him in before his penalty hat trick, and he has done amazing things to me. Again, only real managers that have that sort of foresight, of which I am one. In terms of the players, obviously there's Kirkos and Houston at the back. I mean, obviously one's a fullback, one's a CM, but you just go that based on price and whatever you're fancying, really. Then you got Clivert, Semenyo, and I can't believe Tara. He's the guy who's playing up top for them, but he's in midfield. I personally think if you want to have two out of those three, Clivert has to be one of them just because he's on penalties. I think it's that simple. Um, I've had Clivert. Some weeks he's done nothing, and Semenyo's hauled. I think unless you're going to go triple Bournemouth in midfield, which is pretty rogue, I think just go for Clivert. Except that you're going to miss a Bournemouth player 1 week. 1 week, Semenyo will get a hat trick and he'll get nothing. But that's fine. Just accept that. But either way, I think
So
definitely
you,
one Bournemouth mid.
so your banker is Clivert,
Yeah, still Clivert, who I have actually.
and your middling rogue.
My middling is Mateta. I think we've spoken about him before. Palace still have a good
Wow.
run. I still have a good run. He's quite low owned, Mateta. He's 6%. I think that's because of his price. I think he's 7 point something or other. So he's quite expensive, even though he's a striker. But they've got and Palace. I know Palace aren't great, but even when they've been poor, he's been scoring. I think there's more goals in him. They've got Man U, Everton, Fulham, Villa, Ipswich. That's a pretty good five run. So I would say he's in the middle. I know most people have got some of their defenders, but I'm not the biggest fan of them at the back. I think that I don't remember them having many two clean sheets. And then my rogue, and I've been really looking forward to saying this. He got mentioned last week, but now he's officially my rogue shout. That is in Cisco at Ipswich, on loan from Brighton. He comes
I
on for
love it.
Hutchinson.
I
So
love it.
the big concern is will he start? But he's come on for Hutchinson. He did. He got an assist. He's from a corner, so he's set piece
On
threat.
corners.
And who do they have next? Southampton at home. And
I
knowing McKenna and knowing Ipswich, they're not going to think let's just sit back and get a 1-0. They're going to go for the juggler. They're going to open it up, and then Cisco against Southampton, who are on track to be the worst team in Premier League history. That's pretty tasty. Actually,
I
Ipswich run after that isn't too bad either, but it's mainly
I
because of
I
Southampton at home.
I do not have the words in the English language to describe how much I love that shout and how much that epitomizes what this podcast is. There was a
Mm.
player who plays for Ipswich, who's on loan from Brighton, who came on for what, 20 minutes, was on corner, and he got an assist on the 90th minute at Anfield, and we just go, love it, put him in the
Yeah,
team, brilliant. I love it. I love it so
yeah.
much. How much is he?
He's 5.4, something for a bit cheaper than that, but he's still pretty cheap and
Yeah,
0.1%
yeah, yeah.
owned, I think.
Yeah, well, we got lots of cash slopping around, so it's not too bad. So look, we're going to be in agreement this week. My banker is Cliver. I think even
Mm.
with Liverpool at home,
Ah,
he's on
first time this
10.
season, I think we've
Yeah,
agreed
I
on the
think
bank.
so. I think so. I mean, we said Trent, I think maybe before, but anyway, I
Mm.
mean, I think he's a class player, and he looks like he's really, really banging it in. So, and this is why I was laughing to myself before. My middling is any Bournemouth defender.
Okay. Wow.
So I
Okay.
think Heisem is good because he's cheap, 4.4. I've got Cliver. I benched him a few times and missed out on the points. If you want to be super rogue in the defense, I think it's worth looking at Kepper. Now, Kepper
Oh.
has he kept them in that game, in that Forest game, in the few moments when they were 1-0 up. He made some impressive saves. He's got 7 points in that game. He got 3 points against Forest, even though they conceded.
Wow.
And then
So
he missed.
he got a bonus
He
point
got a bonus point, mate.
when they
And
went
if
5-0. Wow.
and if I'm looking back through the season, he's got one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 bonus points in 23 games, which is not bad for a keeper that costs you 4.5 million. He's 1.9% owned. Again, he's got Liverpool, so if you're bringing him in this week, you're probably not playing him. But again, he could get 10 saves in that game, and they could lose, or they could get a draw of 2-2, and he gets 4 or 5 points, which is still a pretty good return. And then as we've said a couple of times, Bournemouth gone on an absolutely ridiculous run. Southampton at home, sorry, Southampton away, Wolves at home, Brighton away, Tottenham away, Brentford at home, Ipswich at home. It's a great fixture run right up until mid-April. And then my rogue shout, and you mentioned his name. It's another Bournemouth player. Oh, it's Dango Atara.
How's
What a
that rogue?
man!
How on earth? Oh
Because
my
he's
God.
because he's
Rich
5 million.
is a rogue shout. He's
No, no, no.
absolutely
Okay,
terrible.
Stephen,
Oh
Stephen,
my
Stephen,
God.
Stephen. Let me
How
talk.
didn't he get
Let
a
me
hat trick in
talk.
the last game?
Yeah, he got a hat trick in the
How
last
is
game.
somebody who got a hat trick a rogue?
Let me
What are
let
you
me
talking about?
let me tell you why. Let me talk you through it. Right. So number one, he's £5 million, but he's in the midfield slot now. At the moment, I think there are most people's midfield pretty stacked with players they want. There's not much movement. I think the movement is more in the defense and in the attackers. If you've got a midfield of, let's say, Palmer, Salah, maybe
Mbemba.
one more Liverpool defender, Liverpool attacker, sorry, and
Mbemba. Most people have Mbemba.
Wemo, someone like that, Eze maybe, or someone like that. Or Rogers, Ahmad, these players, you're probably quite happy with that setup, and you probably don't want to move it on. So the reason why I think it's rogue is because I think a lot of players will sit there and go, he can't keep going up there. I'm going to stick on Rogers. I'm going to stay on Rogers as a ticker, going along. But I think he's proved, and especially with them not having a recognised striker, he will get some good minutes, and I think he'll get some good goals. So my banker, middling, and rogue are all Bournemouth players because I'm in love with what they're doing. Um, And
I
yeah,
honestly, I'm going to go back and go through your rogues. We've had Kevin De Bruyne, a guy
who
who just
wasn't
got a
playing.
hat. Yeah, honestly, this is just unbelievable. And oh, unbelievable. And I even go for one of your rogue shouts as well. Actually bring him into the team. Oh, Barry.
So, Stephen, I
Wow.
love being in your head rent free about my choices, but that's what I'm going for. That's the type of manager I am. So, look, I think we're coming towards the end of the pod. So, you might remember we used to do a section called Football Heritage, and we have dropped the ball on that, and we do apologize. But we're going to bring it back with fire and brimstone.
Mm.
And the question this week is surrounded the you might have seen the Deloitte financial figures that came out that angered lots of Spurs fans. I won't go into a rant about that. But that showed people having a proportion of their spend being on wages, or also their net spend. Interestingly enough, Manchester United in the last, I think it was since 2017, have had a net spend of £1 billion, which is absolutely mental. To put it in context, Spurs have had 500 million, right? So yeah, make of that what you will. So the question was, who has spent the most on wages in the Premier League in the last 10 since 2017 in that report as a proportion of their income. So Spurs 44%, right? And that was pretty low, I would suggest. And then I think
Mm.
maybe West Ham was like 50, something like that.
Oh,
So
really
so
well.
so it's around the sort of those numbers. So the person the team that spent the most, that's the team we're looking for. An extra credit if you get the percentage. Pretty shocking when I read it. But so yeah, that's our question and we'll reveal all next week. But Stephen, you've mentioned one of your transfers that you're going to make. Any other transfers you think about? You said, oh, you brought in Canate, is that right?
Canate, I can't remember who I sold him for, but somebody who wasn't getting into the team, basically. So, but
Right.
again, a very defensive move for me.
And you have Salah.
I have Salah.
Okay. Do you have
My
Gakpo?
doublers are I only have three doublers. Canate, Salah, and Enjoy. Enjoy who I've captained.
And out of Canate, Salah, and Njai, you've captained Njai.
Oh yeah.
Brilliant.
I don't think
Uh,
Liverpool are going to do one of those game weeks.
okay.
I honestly don't. I think people have really talked themselves into Salah's going to get a hat trick in both games. I just don't see it.
Okay. So for me, at the moment, I have three doublers of Trent, Salah, and Gakpo. Probably am going to triple captain Salah, although I am worried about the same things
Wow.
as you are. Um, my original plan was to do Harwood Bellis to Mikalenko, and then if I get brave, Wood to Njai, because I've got two transfers,
Do
1.6 in the
it.
bank.
Five
Um,
doublers, Barry. Five.
then I'd have five doublers, yeah, and I would be pretty happy with that. But then the other move I was thinking about was so I've got Ismail Assar, as you know, and he hasn't really done much. So if I don't go for a Bournemouth, Everton defender, I was thinking about going to Mbeumo from Saar, and I couldn't do
Yeah, I
it.
mean,
But he does have Tottenham next. But again, that's not a
Brentford.
hard fixture. So
It's actually yeah. That's so bring him in. The
yeah, I
worst
know
defense in the
it's
league. Bring him in.
Operation Target Spurs, right? But yeah, so I'm thinking about bringing in Buemo. He's what 7.8. He's a
Yeah,
killer to my rank. After Tottenham, he's got great level of fixtures. So if I don't do it this week, I'll do it next. Um,
yeah. I agree with you. I would say before, during Tottenham, he also has a great run of fixtures. So bring him in. Bring him in, Barry. Don't let your heart for Spurs ruin what is a very
but then
sensible
there's two
transfer.
doublers, so I could bring in Mikalenko and Njai, and then just have five doublers and be quite happy. The other thing I was thinking about, which is a bit
Mm.
roguer, is triple captain and Gakpo instead. But that could be just recency bias. It could be
I
lots of
mean,
things.
I think we get triple captain. Liverpool player just has to be Salah, right? I think again,
Yeah,
like if you're gonna go rogue, you just don't captain a Liverpool player at all, like I've done. But
yeah. Okay, cool. So that brings us to the end of the pod. I hope it's been useful. I hope you enjoy the first double game week of the season. Remember, it's a
Mhm.
game, all for fun, as Josh would say, and us. So, yeah, we have been Fun Fantasy FPL. Once again, thank you very much for listening to us. And please do give us a like and subscribe. And thank you to Rita, who, whilst she had a bad game week, her faith in Haaland has come through for her. She's still fourth in the mini league for our podcast. Um, so yeah, thank you for her for putting this rabble of a podcast together because it really could not happen without her. And we've been Fun Fancy FPL. Thank you very much.